Welcome to Create Your Happy, the podcast that empowers conscious women in life, relationship, and business. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness hussy and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. Now get ready, because on this very special bonus season, we are going to take your entrepreneurial journey to a whole nother level. These uncut conversations are designed to support you as you unleash your entrepreneurial brilliance upon the world. My incredible guests and I have come together with a shared vision to empower women to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and lead with love. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to this week's episode. We have this incredible masterclass series going on, and I have had the most wonderful conversations with the most incredible guests. And I'm really excited for this topic today. I wore my couple goals hoodie today, and I got my Create mug for my coffee, and we are going to dive in to a conversation about creating your fuck yes love story. So if you're looking to create the life and love of your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. We are going to have a beautiful conversation. And so today I have with me Rene Schooler, who is a relationship and love mentor, here to have this incredible conversation. Now, I'm going to let you, Rene, start to share a little bit about your story. Let the watchers, listeners, audience know a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and just give us a little taste of who is Rene, and then we'll dive right into our conversation about creating this fuck yes love story. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Christy. So first off, I want you to know that I opened my phone up to the group so that I'll see comments, so that I can alert us to the comments, okay? Because
I hope it works.
Let's see if that works. Although my phone will probably time out on me and I won't see it, but there you have it. Who am I? Oh gosh, over 2 decades of working with people, singles, couples, men, women. My education level goes back to the spiritual friend. So I got my start in Tantra in my teen years, amazingly enough. I went out the sexual gates, the relationship gates, with a foundation of Tantra. And you and I have kind of discussed a little bit about that. And, our world today looks at Tantra from sexual positions and stamina, and we think sting, 3 hours of sex. That's not what Tantra is at all. It's like that's one apple in the apple pie, as I always say. I'm like, no, you gotta think Dalai Lama here. And I know that's not sexy, but that's more what Tantra is. So I did get my start there. I moved into spiritual understanding, got my Reiki's mastership, quantum touch, did dream interpretation, works with some amazing coaches and mentors in that field, was in a 17-year marriage, had 5 kids, and had a horrible experience. Horrible experience. We're going to sum it up with that.
Yeah.
Whatever could happen in a relationship probably did. It probably did. All of the nasty stuff. And so what a beautiful ground of learning is how I've learned how to, re-educate myself about those experiences. Mm-hmm. And through that, I actually gained a whole bunch of, due to my husband then's health challenges, I learned all about nutrition, and ended up going down a nutritional coaching path. And so, as you can see, it was building on itself. Fast forward to my 30s, where I say, I'm done. I quit. I'm out. I want a divorce. And I have very limited experience in the love, the relationship, the healthy sexual department, and the abundance department. Even with all the spiritual, all of the stuff that I had learned, big self-development person, studied all of that, did massive amount of learning. But I hit my 30s and I just knew something had to change. My own physical health was taking a toll. I was exhausted. I went into what I look at as like the dark night of the soul for about 2 years, and it got really, really dark, really dark. And I pulled myself out of it with a divorce and some good people in my life. And that led me down this path of, I need to heal myself, which right before I ended up getting a divorce, I found a teacher who came into my life. Magically, I kind of put it out there, and all of a sudden, this person, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear.
It works.
Very accurate, very, very accurate. It happened. he messaged me, and I'm just going, how does this person know what's going on in my head and in my life? I've not told a soul about this, and he's messaging me this. I'm like, ah, right?
Yeah.
The angels are listening.
You're like, okay,
So
okay, I'm listening.
yeah, I'm listening. So I went with it, which led me down the one and only space that I had not done self improvement work on, which was my sex.
Hmm.
Was my sex, my orgasm, the lack of it,
Yeah.
and the unhealthiness of the sex that was taking place, and the people pleasing in my sex that I was giving to my husband at the time, and how that was derailing everything. And
Yes.
so here came Tantra back into my life. And also here came the new crusade that, and I always refer to myself as I am that crusader personality. Like, give me a good crusade and I'm on it. I'm like, let's go into the battlefield. People need to hear this. So I went into that battlefield of that crusade, starting with self, starting with the relationship, knowing that I might need to let go of the relationship 100%, which is what ended up happening. And the more I healed myself, the greater the divide became. And it was just an obvious, we got to get divorced, which led me into 2 years of exploration and learning of the self, which I encourage every woman on the planet to do now. I'm like, oh my
1,000%.
gosh,
Yes.
let your inner slut out for a moment, because
She
it
deserves it.
he deserves it. And this is where you learn, because we're so shamed around those
We really
pieces
are.
as women. And a lot of our people pleasing in relationships and in our intimate relationship and in the bedroom, which impacts us tremendously, is caused because we have shame around, oh, we don't want to be promiscuous. We don't want to be
Yeah.
loose. We don't want these things.
Well,
Right?
we
It's like
have
it's
a
guys
lot,
can do it, but women can't.
an awful lot of conditioning really around, well, since we're on the topic of sex, I mean, all of these things, all of these topics that have come up so far about sex, about relationship, about ourselves, about spirituality, all of this conditioning that we have to start to slowly strip away little bits that aren't us to
Hmm.
start to discover who the fuck we are underneath all of that. And we go through life, and especially I feel like mothers, especially. Now, I'm not discounting anyone else. So if you're not a mother and you still relate to this, absolutely, it fits for everyone. But I feel like there's this extra layer for mothers, because we then end up throwing not only everything we have into a relationship with a partner, but now we have these tiny dependent humans. And so there's just, we are who rely on us to keep them alive, right? So there is this level of martyrdom in motherhood in a way, otherwise the race wouldn't survive. But we tend to take some of that to the extreme, and we can really get lost in the mothering, we can really get lost in the relationship, we can really lose who we are. And when we're constantly in that martyring role, giving, right? I know y'all out there overgivers, some of you real proud of it. I used to be one the same too. I didn't say no, right? I didn't want to disappoint anyone. I was walking on eggshells with my partner to avoid conflict, to avoid another friggin' fight that there was no winners from. And here's the thing, you can be right, or you can or you can be happy, and those things, sometimes they really clash. And so when you're in this situation of constantly walking on eggshells or trying to avoid the landmines, that is people pleasing. That is a form of a manipulation of that other person, because you're trying to create a certain outcome that is comfortable for you. And I know that's an uncomfortable idea to hear for so many people, but hold up, because this isn't about blaming or shaming or being at that at all. This is about taking personal responsibility, because like Rene said, like that relationship with yourself is literally the foundation to everything. And that's what we've been talking about on the podcast. This whole season 2 has been focused on relationship with self, because it is so foundational. So how do we start? Okay, well, let's go back here, because I want to be really clear that, because we're not blaming or shaming or pointing fingers or saying that people pleasing or overgiving is wrong or bad, because frankly, I don't really believe in wrong or bad. It just, things just are. And there are choices that feel better or more correct for us, and some that don't. And generally, when we slip too far into the people pleasing, we end up feeling bitter, resentful, unseen, unheard. We're giving too much. We get to the point of burnout and exhaustion. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to still give. We know you have a generous heart. You want to give, but we want to make sure that you're not giving to the detriment of your own well-being, right? That's where we're going to find that balance. And I want to say that if you have these tendencies, first of all, you're absolutely very incredibly not alone, because a huge percentage of the world is struggling with these good girl people pleasing tendencies. So please know you are in very good company, and lots of us have overcome some of that. But also that it's not your fault. It's not anything that you did. It's not you that's bad or wrong. It's trauma from, likely from your early childhood, but also could well be small t, big T trauma building up over a lifetime. And so these things accumulate over a lifetime. It's not your fault that they happen to you. But here's the power part. When you're standing in your power, you're taking responsibility for what you can do right here, right now, to change the narrative, to change the story, right? We can't actually, turn back the clock, turn back time and erase what's happened. And we don't really want to do that, because the truth is, and as you were speaking earlier about getting that wisdom from the challenges, from the obstacles, I would never go back and erase my marriage, even though it ended in divorce, actually both of them. They taught me so much about me. And I gained so much wisdom from those challenges, those seeming obstacles, that seeming clusterfuck of a big mess, actually taught me more than I could have possibly learned from any book or any conversation or any other source of information, because it was experiential, right?
Mm-hmm. And
So,
what you're saying there, I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. But I think that the challenge comes that so often we get faced with these traumas, and yeah, there's a lot of traumatic situations that happen and we don't have really a control over, right? It's
absolutely.
especially especially coming into the world. Like there's so many horrible stories back there, right? Like so
Yep.
many people have things. You're just born into the situation. That's not your your doing in that,
Yeah.
like you're not going to blame the 2-year-old for that situation that they got born into,
Yeah.
right? For sure. However, with that said, it is our duty as we mature, as we grow, to become self aware.
Yeah.
And so many people are scared to death of the self awareness of those shadowy lands and what ends up happening. And I was right along that line of like, I say, okay, so then I met this, but this person came into my life, that happened, this situation. Well, in my 30s, I got raped, right? I went out there and I ended up experiencing a rape. And I put myself into really bad relationships, right? Like both of us have the story of like we've got 2 relationships behind us that ended not great, right? They were not successful, probably in the happiness compartment or the longevity compartment of like what our picture going in would have been. It was not what we wanted to develop. We didn't enter the relationship going, this is what I want, all of this crap here, right? Like that's not what you go into, but we do attract to us exactly what we need. And that is a very difficult thing to swallow, that we are actually bringing it to ourselves because, and only because, we haven't done the self-awareness work of going, yeah, this shit happened back here. And yeah, that wasn't my doing. I was born into that situation. My parents did the best they could, or they didn't do the best they could because they have their own crap and everything.
Well, that is
But
probably the best they could, right?
right,
But we're
and that
all
was what
doing what we
they
can
could.
with the resources and understanding and
Right.
awareness that we have,
For where
right?
they are at.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if we are to forgive ourselves for the choices that we make, which is part of the key focus of like self-awareness, is to be able to forgive the self first. That also means that we can look at another and go, yeah, that was some shit right there.
Yeah.
But you're human, and that you didn't know any better. I
Yeah.
hope that you've learned better, but I'm not in control of you. I have no control over you. The only thing on this planet that I have control of is right here. Yeah, it
This
is
one
right
right
here.
here. Yep,
That's it.
exactly.
That is the only thing. It's my thoughts, it's my feelings, it's my reactions too. And you brought that point up. It's like, yeah, I look back, and when I was in the midst of like coming through that rape, a client of mine raped me. It took a lot. A male client of mine who was the CEO, right? Like it took me a heck of a lot to even venture back into being able to work with men, to walk into an office space, a closed container, because I was so jarred by this experience. And and I had shame around it because I thought, what did I do? And then I was like, I didn't react the way I thought I would have reacted. I thought I would fight. Instead, I played dead. Like what happened there? Like, but then, fast forward a couple years, because that's what it took. And it took a lot more. And it took me learning a whole bunch of different things. I looked back and I went, wow, yeah, now I got that crap from my childhood, and I got this relationship, and now I got this experience. But you know what? I couldn't relate at this level. I couldn't feel this at this level. I couldn't empathize and be compassionate at this level that I can now. So look at the blessing that I'm being given, because I am able to be that bold, outspoken person. I am that crusader nature. So if God's given me this purpose, well, then isn't this the perfect opportunity for me to really lean in here, for me to really find my power so that I can help other women find their power in this same shit situation,
And it's
right?
so hard when you're in it because all you see is the shit everywhere. And the weight of the shit is heavy. And if you are actually not willing to look at the shit, if you're just in there with your blinders on, which so many of us are because we weren't taught emotional intelligence, we weren't taught how to handle trauma, we weren't taught how to respond versus react, we weren't taught how, we were in fact taught how to stay in survival mode in all intents and purposes by all of the systems that we're playing along with here. And I say
Mhm,
playing because ultimately we are playing a game. We
mhm.
are we are so much more than we believe ourselves to be, most of us. And we have so much more power available to us. But we go through this life as a human, we forget that we're powerful. And we are, distracted by the very compelling illusion of quote unquote reality. Now, if you really think about it, there is no reality out there that is not filtered through your mind. So it is all going through
And
perspective.
that filtration through the mind really, I mean, we are programmed to fear everything. And we are programmed to believe that this response of fear, which is an ego response, is giving us the accurate perception of our reality.
And
But
it's lies.
that's the illusion. It's
It's
lying to us all the time. Is
yeah,
lying to us because it's like, well, I fear it because, well, I'm judging that person this way, or I'm viewing this situation that way, or this took place to me, it happened to me. And yeah, I'm a firm believer that when you're in it and you're underneath that pile of shit, like the best place for you to be is to let yourself feel the pile of shit. Like just feel it, get right. Like we hide, we mask, we try to cover up, we avoid, we run from, we do all of these things in avoidance to the feeling of the pain, because
right.
we don't know how to deal with that, right?
A little
But pain,
uncomfortable. And we weren't taught
right?
to deal with that little uncomfortable because, right, when we were children, we were told to be a good girl and be quiet and not
Hmm.
not have too big of emotions, not have a big response, not get angry. That's not okay. And so our whole lives, I feel like women especially, but again, men too, I'm not excluding them, but we're talking here to women, are really under this good girl conditioning, right?
Hmm.
And
Well,
so we're not
the flip side is that as women, we're also told not to think too highly of ourselves, right? So
humble.
don't receive too much love. Don't shut it down. Don't receive the compliment. Don't receive. The receivers are the sluts, right? The receivers are these egoic, overly cocky, confident people, and there's shame put on that. They're bragging, right? So we are shamed to brag, shamed to think anything of ourselves, but at the same time told, no, you need to value yourself. Like, don't value yourself. What the fuck am I
It's so
supposed to do with that?
confusing.
Like, what is it? Both paths, though, both of these are fear-based
Yeah.
driven thought processes and perceptions. And that is where self-awareness is the most important thing. And if I want to share this because earlier I've been reading and I love this book. I will send it to you, or I'll post it on the thing. But it's called Love Without Conditions.
Okay. Oh.
And one of my coaches recommended it to me. He was reading it and I'm like, okay, I'm not familiar with that book. So that's one I haven't read. And it's kind of like a channeled work of the Christ, you could say.
Okay.
Right. And I love reading from all over perspectives. But there's certain accuracy. And this statement in here, I read this morning. I was like, oh, such perfect timing. Thank you for bringing this to me. Learning to give love to the wounded person within begins to reverse your belief that your self-worth must be based on how others respond to you.
Hmm.
And isn't that that's the self-awareness, right? That's that self. We're in the pile. We can't see the light of day. It's all too much. And we're feeling it and we're stuck in that victim consciousness. But
Yeah.
how do we get to that victor consciousness? By actually giving the love to that wounded aspect of ourselves,
Yeah.
and going, I have to give my love here to myself first, because as long as I'm looking out there for it, I'm never going to achieve it.
Right.
Never.
And as long as we are trying to prove ourselves or earn our worth or value or any of these things, which is what keeps us trapped in the loop, is this idea that we have to actually do
Mm-hmm.
things to be valuable, to provide worthiness. But there's another route, because the truth is, if we strip away all of that illusion, we are already incredibly worthy, infinitely worthy. We are already like infinitely valuable. And it's not because we have done something or proved ourselves or earned something. It's because we are. And so that is now we have these two paths before where we like couldn't be good enough this way and we're too much over here and not enough over here. And there's no fucking way to reconcile all of that, because the paradox and the contradiction is to like, you can't, right? It's like this striving to some perfect place in the middle, but still conflicted by both sides, saying you're too much and you're not enough. And so how do you start to reconcile that? Right? It is to step away from that illusion entirely, because you don't need to earn your worth or your value or prove it or any of those things. You don't need to do anything. You are already incredible. Now, when people are out there looking to build their fuck yes love story, now we know maybe you're incredible, maybe you don't. That's hard to say. But when we're looking for relationship, there are some things that we need to do, and the awareness is 1,000% the first piece. Because if you're not aware of why things are happening the way that they are, or how you can reclaim your power, by the way, you didn't ever give it away, you just forgot you had it. So just reclaiming, standing in that power, and creating the relationships that you desire and deserve, means breaking some of these patterns, right? It means overcoming. It means recognizing those small t and big T traumas that have influenced you to this point, but not clinging to them, not hanging on to them, not remaining attached to them, letting go of the stories, the judgments, the assumptions, the expectations. And I know that's really big, because for me, that was fucking huge. Now I was almost laughing before, because my first marriage it was actually a really incredible relationship from most standpoints, until 1 year into our marriage, when he told me that he is gay. So imagine this great relationship. We were like best friends. Like we got along really well. And actually our sex life wasn't terrible. It was okay-ish. Like, I didn't have a huge basis of a comparison at that point, because I was really young. So I didn't really know much different. It was loving. He was kind. He was supportive. We were great friends. It was actually, all intents and purposes, a pretty incredible relationship, aside from that piece. So I did learn some things about what a good relationship looks like from there. And then I promptly forgot it, because I got all woe is me and like, how did I end up with a gay guy and I don't know what to do. And so the next relationship I went into after that was just a couple of years. We got engaged and then it fell apart. But he was like the guy's guy. And all he cared about was sports. And I kept feeling second fiddle to these fucking football games all the time. And it's one thing to like, enjoy sports and do your thing. And that's fine. But it was just, that was the priority. And I just kept feeling like I was the last on the list. And so anyways, that fizzled out for obvious reasons, that amongst many other potential reasons that were built into there. And then I ended up with my most recent ex-husband, which that was an adventure itself too. I will say that the pivotal moment for me was, it came to this moment where I realized like, holy fuck, it's me. And that was terrifying at first, right? Because like, oh shit, like I am creating this. And I did not like that. I did not like the feeling of that responsibility, right? Like I call this radical responsibility. It's not comfortable at first to be like, oh shit. Yep. That's been me. I've been tolerating some stuff. I tell this story often. I probably have told it before, maybe in this series on the podcast. Absolutely. I liken it to when you're driving home and you get home and you realize, oh, I just got home, but I don't remember stopping at any of the lights along the way, realizing I was on autopilot and I've just been floating through life. And that's sort of what happened to me, this holy shit moment, like, oh my God, it's me. But what? And okay, so this is not great. I'm feeling like this is the weight of this is on me because my bad. I've got myself here. But then also recognizing this empowering position I'm now in to change the trajectory moving forward. So from this present space, this present now moment, then I started to ask myself, what have I tolerated? Where have my boundaries been lacking or non-existent or non-communicated? Because that's the thing that we love to do too. We have boundaries in our mind, but we don't tell anyone. And then we're pissed off when people trample all over them. And then we expect them to adhere to them without even knowing what they are. And that's something. Boundaries are a whole other topic. That's once you've got that relationship with yourself firmly planted, though, now it's easier to determine what those boundaries look like, right? What feels, I'm going to say, correct for you, which means like it's generally feeling good and in alignment for you, whatever words, just words, pick your words, try and get the gist of the thing. Don't hang on to my words. But when you kind of get this idea of like all of that together, now you're standing in your place of power and you can actually affect the future. You can affect your present moment now. You can choose to release the stories. My first husband being gay had nothing to do with me or my sexuality. That just was the fact. And so I could still be telling this story that he was a jerk and he lied to me. And the truth is, I think he was lying to himself as much as anyone else. And so it just wouldn't serve me to keep taking that story with me where I'm the hurt victim. And it still doesn't serve me after multiple other relationships where, yeah, there was some shit that went down and it wasn't good. It wasn't a healthy, positive relationship that anyone would aspire to. But looking back, I can see that I needed to work on myself. I needed to get to know who I was. And I had gotten lost a little bit, right? Just a momitis, I call it, kind of distracted by the family life and the doing the kids' activities and the making sure everyone else is taken care of. And oh, who the fuck am I? Anybody's guess, right? So clawing my way back out of that when I realized like, holy shit, like how did I get here? I drove home and I didn't see any metaphorical lights. I don't remember stopping at the stop signs. I got to this place where this situation happened with my ex and I was just like, I can't do this. So what I did from there was I worked on myself, and it actually took me a little bit of time to gear up the courageousness, the courage, the braveness, whatever it is, to actually leave because the uncertainty was terrifying. But the key thing that I want to share with anyone here, I don't know if everyone watching is single or in a relationship, either which way, if you are wanting to create more love, more passion, more connectedness, more sexy time, because hey, everybody could use more orgasms. If you're wanting more of that, whether it's in your current relationship, whether you're looking for a new partner, whether you've been burnt 1,000 times before and you just keep repeating the same fucking patterns over and over and over. We want you to know there's hope. And it's not because, you're bad or wrong. It's just because there's an illusion in front of you that is very compelling and keeping you from seeing the truth. And the more you spend that time going inward, getting to know who you are, that truth becomes so much more clear. And then you are easily able to identify those boundaries. Communicating them might be another challenge. That's a different part of it. But the identification of like what feels correct and good and in alignment for you, that will overflow from this getting to know yourself, right? And as you're doing this, you start to recognize like, I'm pretty okay. When you start to like love on those bits and you realize, wait a minute, I thought I was a terrible, wrong, bad person for having this shadow part. But actually, now I realize everybody has that, right? And at the same time, reconciling that with the fact that we are not our thoughts. We're not this meat suit. We're not our thoughts. We're not our body. We're not our emotions. We are the observer of all of that. And so when we can step out of who am I and what am I meant to do and all of these like weighed down sort of things that are keeping us stuck, we can realize, wait a minute, I'm actually the one who's deciding. How am I responding? What am I creating? How am I being? And then can start to shift those slowly towards a state of being that feels really fucking good. And that is your intended state. Your intended state is not to suffer, is not to stay in relationships, it is not to stay in a victim mentality. Again, that's different from being a victim. You can be a victim to a circumstance, absolutely. But the mentality you don't have to take with you. You can set that down and you can write a new story, right? And that is where your power comes in to say, I am no longer going to remain the victim to my past. I am going to become victorious and step into my future. So what else do you want to share on this, Rene? What is the next step? So we've got this awareness going on. Maybe we're starting to understand what's in alignment for us. Where do we go from there? How do we start? I know everybody's like, okay, but where do you find the men or whatever? Right? Because that would be my question at that point, and be like, where do you even find the people? And I will share my little story but I want you to share a little bit.
Yeah, you said so much that I'm like, yeah, you and I had a conversation prior to everything, and I was like, yeah, we're so aligned on even our experiences and everything. Oh my God, girl. But yeah, and I was just thinking, I'm like, I went through that marriage, and then I had my dating period, and I deliberately, and I mean, the message here is I was deliberately dating to date, not to mate, which is a really big difference, right? I knew in that moment coming out of my marriage that I didn't know a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And that I needed to get comfortable with a whole bunch of stuff. And because I didn't know, I had to go put myself into these awkward situations, these where I had a lot of restriction to do it. I was like, no, I it was a lot, but I use those moments to practice learning body language. I use those moments to practice communication. I kind of had a concept around boundaries and these things, but I didn't know how to communicate it.
Right.
So the best school for that was get my ass out there and do it, right? So I went out with that mindset of I'm going to go and date, right? And I went into these relationships telling men I want to date. Well, there was a lesson in that too, because then I found out, oh, they're all happy about this. And now they don't have to make commitments, and now they're not going to take me seriously. Now I'm a fun toy, right? So that emerged from that 18-month, 2-year phase. I ended up with 11 boyfriends. I ended up with, like, it was a lot of sex going on, a lot of learning going on. I met some amazing men that completely shifted and altered my world. And I ended up with a couple relationships out of it that went a distance. I actually found my next 2 long-term relationships because I went from a monogamous relationship into an open relationship with 2 men. And that was a learning ground. One had my heart and one had my mind, right? And here's the point I want to make from that is like I went out there with that concept of date to date, and then something shifted and I wanted more. I wanted the relationship again, right? I ended up having 2 children with the man who had my mind, right? But the other man had my heart. And I learned there was a whole bunch of, unfortunately, crap that happened, right? And I could say, yeah, there's trauma and stuff. I played a massive role in that trauma. I consented to a lot of it. And there's a whole topic around that, right? Like you can go into that, like the consensual stuff that we do to ourselves for the people pleasing,
Yeah.
right? Well,
There's a lot
that's a
we
lot.
and a lot we tolerate. And sometimes that's, just not knowing ourselves, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
don't know ourselves, we tend to just accept what comes our way because we don't have this knowing like, oh, wait, that's not me. And people talk a lot about empaths absorbing other people's emotions and energy. And I want to say right here, you don't have to do that. When you know yourself, you don't need to set up protective barriers or bubbles or whatever the fuck people are doing. And no offense if you're and if it feels like it's the right thing for you, I don't want to discourage you from doing what feels right for you because we are all on our own path. But I want to encourage you just to say, when you know yourself well, you don't have this problem of other energetic attacks or emotional baggage or any of these things because you just clearly can see, oh, that's not me. That's not mine. That's not me. And I don't need to protect myself from it because I'm just simply aware that it's not mine and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
taking it on. And this is a piece of overcoming the people pleasing that allows a lot of freedom because the more you know yourself, the more authentically you are presenting yourself, the easier it is to create boundaries, right? Because now you just know, okay, well, that did not feel good. And this is what would make me feel okay. And then to communicate them to other people. And then this all requires a great deal of vulnerability, right? Which is the tricky part because we weren't taught how to have emotional intelligence or deal with big emotions or feel through traumas or process or any of these things. We were generally taught to shut that shit all down right from a young age. We were taught to fit in, to sit down, to be quiet, to obey the rules, to not ask too many fucking questions, to be perfect and pure and all of these things just in a tidy little box.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not fucking doing that anymore, are we, Rene?
I mean, and yeah, and all of that, it's like, and I know it's probably true for you too, like because we have this stuff in our past, we we've learned how to know ourselves better, but we're not perfect yet,
Yeah.
right? Like the process is still there. So if we have things will come to us and they are testing grounds
Yeah.
and we're going
Well,
to
an
meet people
opportunity,
for
right? An opportunity to
opportunity.
learn,
It
right?
is, and that's the positive take, but it feels very much like
Yeah.
we're being tested in that moment, and that's the feeling that we have to attach to go, that's the aha, right? Because if we can recognize, oh, I feel like I'm getting tested right now, or I feel irritation or frustration here, or I feel like I need to go boom and shut down and hide myself to shrink to do something, right? In those moments, that needs to be like a smoke detector for us going off and saying,
So good.
hey, opportunity to stand in your power, opportunity to be you, opportunity to vocalize your needs, your boundaries, right? And back to the question that you originally asked there, like, where do the men come from? I'm like, well, we're all manifestors here. And as you were talking, I'm like, I've said this to myself a million and one times, girl, you really know how to manifest exactly what you need in the moment. Because I came out of a marriage that was rocky and turbulent, and I didn't even know if the roof over my head was going to stay or not. Our financial world was a wreck. And all I wanted in my world was stability.
Yeah.
And I was so focused on stability that that man who I had 2 more kids with, he's freaking stable. He's he's boring stable, boring stable. You know, and but the connection was there, right? Because what was I putting out? I want stability. I want stability. I had been doing the single mom thing for a couple years with 5 kids and running my business and scared shitless and exploring. And I just wanted masculine support that was stable. I didn't want that repeat of what I had over there. And so I got exactly what I wanted. Come out of that relationship, guess what I wanted? Playful. I wanted playful. Oh my God. And even in my journal, I was writing, I just want a man that makes me smile, that is touchy feely, that makes me laugh, that makes my kids laugh. And I got him. Boom. Here he shows up. Well, guess what? That also got me an anxiety ridden, codependent guy who was like, oh, smothering me. And I'm like, stop it already. So I broke up with him because of that.
Yeah.
In the process, though, I met my man, right?
Yeah.
Got to be friends with him. And here comes the guy who offers the playfulness, who is more stable than what the other guy was. He's
Yeah.
got future stability. He has a vision. He is well balanced in, like very soft, compassionate. At the same time, he can be fierce as fuck. And
Yeah.
I know that he has my back. And, so he might appear with his tattoos and his guns as the guy out there, and you're like, oh God, here he is. Like you picture him on a Harley. He wants a Harley. He just can't. He failed the test a couple times, but he
We'll
wrecked
tell
the
no one.
motorcycle. Shh, we won't talk. We won't talk about that.
Just
But
everyone on the podcast.
but
No big deal.
yeah, yeah, just be 100 people. Thousand people, whatever. You're like, oops, sorry, ladies. Yeah, but he has all that. At the same time, he has the biggest heart, full of compassion, soft, and can read me. He can read me. And what did I want when I came out of that stability and that playfulness and all of that, and had built up more trauma and more awareness for myself and more, hey, you're doing this to yourself. You're doing this to yourself. You're getting exactly what you're asking for. Consistently, you were being delivered this, right? And then
That's
what did I
annoying,
turn
right?
around and want? I wanted
So
somebody that,
annoying.
right. I wanted some, I was like, how fuck, right? Like,
Like, damn it, my list was incomplete, right? Like,
yeah.
idea, this vision, just glom onto one thing, and then your list ends up being incomplete. You think you want this one thing. This is all you want. This is this
Well,
one.
it's the thing that's lacking the most, right? It's like
It's
it's
the
just
thing.
like our love languages. I believe that we all need all the love languages, and that whatever our primary love language is in the moment, it is what we are lacking the most of in our life, in our relationship in that moment. I'm like, I don't really care about gifts, but damn, if I'm not getting some gifts, I'm wanting some gifts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and what I learned through that was, yeah, it's the list, but also what is the, I was queuing in on, yeah, stability is important. Yeah, playfulness is important. Yeah, those things are important, but I wanted more of a whole package, but not 100% package, because that doesn't exist either. That's
Right.
setting an expectation out there that's not possible, right? But what I can start asking for is I can ask for somebody that wants to know me, wants to wants to know themselves, is willing to get in there and do the dirty work on the individuals and on the entity of us.
Yeah.
And as him and I have always said, like we make the statement of like, I got your back, right? It's like we do this whole like, I got your back, rock solid, like rock solid. We got our little pinky swear thing that we do, like he'll swear me to the pinky swear. Like we're doing this, right? And one day he came to me and he said, Renee, I was falling apart. I was like, it was bad. It was bad. I'm like falling apart. Shit's happening. And he grabs my pinky and he grabs me and pulls me in. This was early in a relationship, like 4 months in. He pulled me in and he grabbed me and he like, look at me. And I'm like, and the last thing I want to do is look into his blue eyes. In that moment, I'm just like, I'm going to cry. I'm going to fall apart. And he's like, your shit is my shit. Would you please let me carry it some for you?
Yeah.
And I went, that's scary.
It is.
That's scary. I don't know how do I receive that? But you know what I wanted was that moment right there. And I wanted that moment to continue to give. And here we are 3 years later. And he's consistent. So where do you find men like him? The answer is go do your time in school, right? Become self-aware every single day. Number one practice that we all need to do is become more self-aware every single day. Do the damn work on yourself every single day. It is very much the airplane stewardess here going, put the mask on yourself, put the mask on yourself, mask on yourself. I know those are your babies, put the mask on yourself. You're not going to be any use to them. You're not going to be any use to anybody if you don't put the mask on yourself. This mask is start dating yourself. It's like start dating yourself, start taking the time for yourself, start doing the practices, whatever those practices are for your individual self that make you feel good, and learn how to shut up to all that garbage in your head
Yeah.
and try to tune in and create that space where you can actually listen, because I am a firm believer that we are constantly being given the messages to take the next step, to see the next thing. The opportunity that is right before us, we disregard because it is not showing up in the cover that we want it to.
Right. And I think it's interesting. I've spoken about this before too, but obviously there'll be new people listening. When I was still with my ex-husband, I had a therapist that I was working with, and she had me create this manifestation list essentially of my ideal partner. So I want to share this with people out there that whether you're in a relationship or you're not, it doesn't matter. You can create this list. Now, this list is not a list of external characteristics. It's not how things are going to look. It's about how things are going to feel, how you are going to experience that love and connection that you desire. Okay. So this isn't 6'3", buff, looks like The Rock, but with hair. Okay. It's not that. It's very fucking far from that. It is someone who makes me feel like my jokes are actually funny. Someone who makes me feel sexy even when I'm sick and bloated. Someone who I can laugh with, someone who I can go on adventures with, someone who I can grow with, someone that I can choose day after day after day. And my partner now and I are not married. I don't know if we'll get married. We may not. We're not really like super into the whole marriage thing. I've been through it twice. And it creates this sort of like weight of obligation for some people. I know it did in my previous marriage, not for everybody. And it's, again, it's just how you interpret it. But I want to really encourage you, first of all, to create a list of what that would look like for you. Because what this does, this clarity helps you to weed out the very clear no's while you're dating. You will be able to knock everyone off who just doesn't fit that thing. Now, you also have to let go of the scarcity that there isn't the right one out there.
There's multiple right ones.
There's a ton of right ones out there. There are so many people you can make it work with if you don't get in your own way, if you don't cock block yourself by settling for less at the beginning. Okay? Because that is my biggest lesson. I was terrified. Listen, the baby clock was ticking. I was, in my late 20s after my first divorce. I was like, oh my God, like I thought I would be moving towards having a family now. And here I am, divorced and single again. And working an insane job where I didn't even know if it would be possible for me to meet anyone outside of my job. And yet I did, because I went out and I did things. Anyways, that's besides the point. When you have this clarity while you're dating, it's very simple to be like, oh, this is just not a fit for me. And it doesn't have to make it bad or wrong or terrible or awful or anything like that. You can be like, thanks for dinner. That was an interesting conversation. It's not a fit for me. And like all of those guys that you were saying that, you would say that you just kind of wanted to date and be casual. I actually remember very clearly telling my current partner this because I had just gotten out of my relationship when we met, and I was not, like, adamantly not looking for a relationship or a commitment or anything like that. I needed a little, kind of call it like a little hoe phase. Like I just honestly needed to be by myself for a hot minute. And he still was there, right? He still was there, willing to wait. And I'm telling you that the right people are not going to be like, oh, you don't want that, I'm out. The right person is going to want the same things that you are at the same time. And it's okay if the timing is off, but you can't force that. All you can do is really firmly get clear on what you want and say no to whatever is not that, right? And I think I wanted to share, just touching back on something that you said before. So much of the time we go through life looking for someone to complete us, to fill in the holes, to help us grow in some area where we feel like we're lacking or insecure. But that's the biggest fucking fallacy, because we don't ever get that from someone else. You never are going to. So please, for the love, stop trying to find that in anyone else.
And the best relationships are going to show you exactly where you're still failing yourself on the love and seeing your own self-worth. Like, and like I'm far from perfect on this. Like I get, Craig triggers me consistently and I trigger him. The difference is that we're committed to the personal growth and the growth of the relationship. And so I view those moments when he's making me feel this way. He's not, but
Yeah.
that's the feeling. You're
Yep.
doing this to me, right? So when I have that feeling come up, I go, wow, girl, like, where's that really coming from right now? Where are you not giving this to yourself? And so if we start to venture into any relationship with that idea of this person is going to show me where I still have growth and
Yeah.
healing to do, doesn't mean that they're not the right person. I mean, if they're willing and they're consistent, like similar story, like I went to Craig went through a relationship with me as a friend.
Mm.
He caught most of that relationship as a friend. And it was in that relationship that I started to realize, like, he was just there. I felt like I was in the Princess Bride, like, I mean, here I am, Princess Buttercup and the Princess Bride, realizing he's saying, as you wish. And I'm like, oh, you're saying I love you. Oh, you're here. Oh, you're consistent, because he was doing that. He was just consistent. And it wasn't until the day that he said, I need you to help me find a woman. I'm like, I really want to work on this. I really want to find a woman. And I felt myself go, fuck no, I'm right here in front of you. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is not happening. No, stop. Right. And I was like, because I was making statements even to my kids of, Craig's not going anywhere. I love Craig. Craig loves me. We weren't dating. We weren't seeing each other. We were
Friends.
hiking together. We were just friends. But I'm making this, and it just is.
Yeah.
And I went, you're missing it. He's right there. You're missing it. There he is. He showed up, and you're not paying attention to this. Look at
You know what?
that. And that's where the guy is. Often, like when I'm working with somebody, often I find that the guy that somebody ends up being with is already there.
And
They're
listen
not
to
seeing
this
him.
paradigm shift right here. This one really shifted things for me. Instead of looking to someone or looking for someone who can complete you, which is the bullshit media that told us all this fairy tale stuff. Now, I do believe fairy tales exist. They just don't look exactly the same way that they do in Disney. It's not like some Prince Charming's coming to save you. You fucking saved yourself. And then
Mhm.
find someone who completely accepts you. Not someone who completes you, but someone who completely accepts you for all of you. That is where the magic lies.
But
And
you
so
gotta be willing to
you got to
put
accept
yourself
yourself
out.
first.
You gotta accept yourself, and you gotta be willing to communicate who you are. You can't go
Yeah.
back to the people pleasing. You can't do the assumptions. You can't have the hidden expectations. You have to know. You talked about that list of, and that's beautiful. I have that list going too. Like that's part of that list. That's beautiful practice. One of the other practices that I would encourage, listeners to do is to get familiar with their values.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that I have people work on is our lives, blendability is highly important. But outside of blendability, it's like, all right, well, they live 200 miles away, really? Right? Or they work the night shift, you work the morning shift. I know that seems like, well, it's a situation. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
They
If
don't want
that's
kids,
not
you
what
want
you
kids.
want, like if
Right.
this just doesn't align with the vision that you have and the values that you have and the trajectory that you are on, you will find, and these are some of the sort of things that I in the past have allowed as concessions, be like, well, maybe it can still work. There's, that's just one thing. But
Yeah.
what happens as you go on and you're going further and further and further and further apart, and
If
eventually,
you have that issue up front, it will not get better. It will not. Plain and simple. I don't care what the stories are that you're telling yourself and these hopeful dreams, and those are illusions. If you are
yes,
challenged to even make a date work, and
yeah,
there's all these things again, next it. It is a next thing.
yeah,
Maybe it's the right person, wrong time. Well, then fine. Then it might come back, or there's somebody else out there that is aligned to you in that moment. But you've got to, like, that blendability
yeah,
piece is massive, and it comes right down to like your food choices. It's like, because if you want to move in with this person, you want to have a life with this person, and one person is going through the fast food lane, and the other person is,
a
all
vegan,
health conscious.
yeah,
Well, it's long term not going to be workable. It is going to cause conflict where conflict is not needed.
yeah,
Right? It's like those are the conflict pieces that unconsciously, deliberately put into our relationships. But then around the values, we go, oh, well, I value a person who's financially stable. Yeah, well, that's a really great value to have, right? Great value. But underneath that value, what kind of person does it take to be financially stable in your mind, right?
Right.
Like, what are those characteristics? What are your core beliefs? What are your core values there? And I normally have people make a list of 50, and then I'm like, okay, now we're going to go through and we're going to prioritize these. We're going to take, I want you to go through and I want you to take 10 off the list. Okay. And now you're going to get down, and we're going to get down to those base 10 core values. These are the things that you build your profiles on. These are the things that you build questions on dates, because dating is a vetting process. It's a
Hmm.
vetting process to relationship. Relationship's a vetting process to partnership, marriage, domestic union, whatever we want to classify there, right? That's where we're like really committed to somebody. But we think, oh, well, I'm dating, because of the fun of it, because I'm bored, because I'm hoping that something will happen. Well, hope doesn't do you any good in this category. Take hope off the table, toss it back there in Pandora's box where it came from, and let's get real about it. Let's like really talk about like, what are your values? What are your beliefs? What is your life like? Now, if you know those pieces and you really can decipher those, guess where your boundaries come from? Guess where your non-negotiables come from? That list right there. All of those things. That's where you figure out what your boundaries are and your non-negotiables. And now you go out and you start to not make it for, I'm not about the first date massive inquiry and making it an interview process. That scares everybody away. It's boring. It's not good.
Yeah.
Have fun. Do something adventurous on that first date. You want to know, can this person relax? Can they chill? Can we laugh together? How do they handle staff? Like, are they willing to go zip lining or to the fair or drink wine or what? They learn those things. That first date needs to be all about fun and just getting to know somebody softly. Now you go to that. Now you're having phone call conversations, right? This is where you pop little questions in based on your list, and you creatively bring those things to the table, and you start to have deep conversations, which is something that most people don't do until they're 3 years in on a relationship. And then they're like, well, that person changed. Just because you know what the food they like and what their favorite color is does not mean you know them.
No, you've got to have those communication skills. If you cannot effectively communicate with one another, there's just too much guessing, there's too much assumptions, there's too much unsaid expectation,
Mhm.
and that is all going to frankly bite you in the ass. And so you have to take down the shields, and it requires some vulnerability to, and not again, like you say, not on the first date, not like right off the bat, but in a solid relationship, you have to have a strong basis of communication, because if you don't, those tough times are going to drive a wedge in between you instead of bringing you together on the same team and the same space. And I want to say too that I find it very interesting that we can, as humans, we're so fascinating. We can feel so many different things at once. We can actually find someone who allows us to feel, I have managed to find someone who makes me feel both very safe and secure and also very like passionate and excited at the same time, which seems very contradictory and is actually something that is a very sort of contradictory model in the world, which is why a lot of people think, at least they think in their minds, it's one or the other. But I subscribe to a both and kind of life. I full spectrum, all the colors. There's no black and white thinking here. It is the entire spectrum of color in between. And that is what makes life so much more fascinating, so much more fun, so much more passion and purpose behind it. And I want to encourage you as well that if you have gotten stuck in any sort of like black and white, right or wrong, good or bad, yes or no, that there could be space for you to move into more of a both and as opposed to the either or thinking. And it might just open you up to seeing things from a different perspective. Now, when you're in a relationship that's not going well, as I was, I want to just share briefly, because we're coming to the end of our time, but I want to share briefly and have a tiny conversation about this for anyone listening who's like, well, I have the relationship, but it's not where I would like it to be. And so I want to share a couple of key things that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head. And then I want you to share your thoughts on that one. How can we bring back the spark and the connection where it feels like it may have been lost? And number one, and this has actually been something that has served me incredibly well in my current relationship as well, is to ditch the assumptions. Stop assuming. You know what they say. We all know what they say about making assumptions. It makes an ass out of you and me. Absolutely does. If we can ditch the assumptions and instead get curious and ask good questions, don't be afraid. Yes, it requires some vulnerability. You might not get the answer that you were hoping for. Again, if you're a people pleaser and you're not asking questions because you're afraid of causing problems, I'm going to recommend that you check out my People Pleasers Masterclass. It is the first step in moving free from the people pleasing patterns. It takes you through why the fuck you're doing that and how to fucking stop it, because it can be really blocking you from having that deep, healthy connection that I know every human wants, that we all crave and desire. And if you think you don't, it's probably trauma telling you don't want that because it's too scary. Right? So really building this connection requires you to strip away the assumptions, to strip away the expectations. It requires this strong foundation of relationship with yourself, knowing who you are, because you're not simply a unit where you disappear and you're just two halves of a whole. You're both whole. Whether you believe you are or not, you're both whole. And so when you both recognize your wholeness and come together, that's where the magic truly happens. So if you're in a relationship, it's not what you want, girl, work on yourself. Work on loving yourself, because the more you love yourself, the more this will ripple out into the other relationships, not just with people, but like with money and with food and with the media and everything that you're experiencing in your reality, because ultimately you are the one who's in control of that, in the creator position, even if you don't know it. We could be very well creating things we do not really say we want, but a part of us wants that because that's what we're creating. How else would you suggest we bring back the spark, Renee? I left you lots of space there. You got.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, yes, all of that. And I mean, for those in a relationship, like 3 years in, the new relationship energy kind of is bleh, right? You know each other, you're familiar. Once familiarity sets in, now you're dealing with this other person. You love them, you're committed to them, but the spark dwindles. And the chemicals just start to fade.
And because we went into a long-term relationship to get safety and commitment, security, and yet there's this paradox where the excitement then fizzles.
We want passion, we want desire, we want that too, and that's where I love Esther Perel's quote of having the love story and become the life story. Like, how do you do that? And it is a rarity in our world, but one of the biggest pieces is the love story and the life story. It is about, we want security, we also want passion and desire. These are the same coin, opposite sides. We can get the passion and desire in a hot fling over here, but how do we maintain it in this secure, beautiful, loving? Because love and desire are not the same thing.
Right.
Right? Love and desire are not. They are vastly different. Desire gets us into the relationship, and love keeps us there. Right? So it's like important to really pay attention to those two things. But how do you get back that spark? How do you get back that desire? And my suggestion on top of what you've already said here, on top of, is it's put down the assumptions, but a lot of the times we make these assumptions, and especially as women, it goes back to the point of like, we have these things that we want and expectations and we don't speak it, and then we get upset about it.
Right.
And it's like, well, if you really want him to buy you flowers, like, tell him that you want him to buy you flowers. Make set aside, and nobody wants to hear, I need to schedule it, but you do. You need to schedule it.
And you know what? Having some notice is a long time for extended foreplay. So I'm just
saying. Is exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, you schedule it, and then you go, okay, well, so I scheduled the date, and I want it to also have sex involved. Well, then 2 days before, start sending him pictures when you know he's in a meeting. Make little gestures about it. Give little clues around the house. You've got to, and what I typically will tell my couples is, I'll say, what did you do over there that you're no longer doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the biggest things. Like, just think back to the courting phase. What did you each do over there that you gave up on? And a lot of it, Exactly. Right. Right. It's like, and a lot of it comes back to, the generalized word of playfulness and adventure. We give up our playfulness, we give up our adventure, and
Yeah.
then we want him to make us laugh, but then we shoot it down.
Yeah.
Right? It's like now he tries to be playful. We're like, well, I want more play. I want more adventure. I want da da da. And then he makes an attempt. We go, oh, I'm just not
Like, I'm
like
not
that.
that
I'm feeling
way.
that today. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. And he's like, you just watch the guy just go,
Deflate.
I'm trying here. I'm trying, right? I'm trying. So, and if he's not trying, then I always go with the person who gains the awareness first. It's their responsibility. Plain and simple. Might not like to hear that one,
Yeah.
but
That's a
ladies,
tough
if
one.
you
That's a tough
it's
one.
a tough one because we want him to be our knight in shining armor. We want him to court us. We want him to do these things. It's like, all right, guys are not as open, knowledgeable, aware of the matters of the heart and of what it takes to get you turned on as you are. So it
No
is
one else
our
is. Literally.
right. It's
Yeah.
our responsibility
Yeah.
if we're the ones who are having the eye-opening experience of like, oh, this needs to shift here, to actually activate the shift,
Yeah.
to start doing something. I'm like, so start wearing dresses all the time. I actually did this. It was a 30-day experiment, and I'll kind of like close on this one for you. But I did a 30-day experiment, and I would recommend all women do this because I discovered that I was in jeans and yoga pants all the time. And I'm like, what the heck's happened? Like, what is going on? They're comfortable, right? But I got trapped in that. And then I went and I noticed that I was like really wanting, we hadn't gone out on a date and he wasn't being as playful. And I'm like, have we reached that point? Have we reached that point? Okay, here we go. It's all like, I'm like, and all of the programs are coming up. And I'm like, okay, no, we got it. Like, we're grabbing the reins here and we're going to do something. So I went into my closet and I have a really big closet of clothes. I'm a girl on that one. Like, I have lots of clothes. No minimalist there for me. But you're minimalist another part, but not in my closet. And I went in and I picked out a whole bunch of cute little skirts and dresses. And I moved them all into, because I have an upstairs closet that's massive, and I moved them down into my everyday closet. And I committed to myself for 30 days that I was going to put on whatever one of these outfits, no matter what, even if I was staying home and cleaning the house, didn't matter. I was putting on this little outfit. No panties. If I could get away without a bra, I was going braless, right? And I didn't tell him what I was doing. I just started wearing cute little skirts and dresses, and I cooked dinner in that, and we'd be doing different things. And it took him about 3 days to go. And next thing I knew, he's playing with my butt and he's, fondling me. And there's a little action happening in the kitchen. And he's getting like this little, like a 16-year-old him was popping back. And he's like, oh, like that. And then he made a comment about one of the dresses, the skirts and stuff. And I went, well, look at that. Look at that. Such a simple little thing.
And how
But
long did it take you to start feeling a little bit more confident now that you're not in comfy clothes? You're not just like in comfy mode, but you're like feeling kind of cute.
it took until he grabbed my ass.
Yeah.
I mean, it did. The grab the ass thing and pushed me up against the sink where there was passion and I could feel his desire and he was letting me know, like, I'm noticing this,
Yeah.
and he didn't know what I was doing. He hadn't even clued in that I was not in yoga pants and jeans. He just realized there was something. And I contributed to, well, I was going out of my norm of just this like mom clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I shifted from mom clothes and I shifted back into playful, datey me,
Yeah.
flirty me, but it was a deliberate action. I had a powwow with myself every day in the bathroom. I was high five in the mirror and I'm like, you got this, girl. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. Yes. Whoa. You are beautiful. You are strong. You are sexy. You're like that, and in that also, I noticed that I had really let down. Like I wasn't being as passionate. I mean, we have always, there's not a day that goes by that I don't stop everything. I know when he normally comes home and I make sure everything's off and I'll pour us a drink or anything because we'll have our 30 minutes at the end of the day. And I will make sure that as soon as I hear his truck, that I head that direction to the driveway and I greet him right at the truck and we have a hello kiss, right? And I help him get stuff. And then we move into like a 30-minute to an hour long connection, just us. And it's just that, just connecting talking about our days,
And
you know,
that's
enjoying.
something that gets missed too, because we're busy. We're in
Mhm,
general with this whole doing, right? We're very
mhm.
busy. We're out working, we're doing the things, and we don't often take time just to connect, just to chat, just to see how each other is feeling.
And
What
for
they
us women, we need that. We need that way. We really need it. Guys need it too. They don't realize how much they need it,
Yeah.
but they need a safe. We as women, we are that safe harbor for our men.
Yeah.
And even if that means that they're just sitting there and go and you ask them how's their day, and Craig does this to me all the time. I'll say, "How was your day, babe?" And he goes, "It was a Monday." You know? And I
Yeah.
go, "It was a Monday?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "It was a good Monday?" And he goes, "It wasn't a bad Monday." And that'll be his share.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into it because I'm a girl. I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to go there, right? I'm like, the woman in me is like, I want to know more. Tell me, share me your feelings. But then he's like, well, how was your day? And I understand that he is decompressing and connecting through my share, through my vulnerability, through me being able to be elevated and go through the emotions and share with him. And then I deliberately ask for his opinion on something, typically because I'm trying to put him to a space of value, appreciation. Hey, Mr. Fix It, help me fix this over here. It's not going to be something that I really don't want him messing with. But I might say, I'm like, no, I don't need you to fix it over here. But here's something for you, right? And
Yeah.
so there is that connection. And we don't, it's not sexy though,
Yeah.
right? But we
It's
want the
not,
desire.
but it is, because
Yes.
without it, we feel unseen, unheard, unaccepted, unloved. And that is a major barricade to
The
getting
good
naked,
sex, the
and
gourmet sex,
and the
right?
and the
Vulnerable.
vulnerability required to really truly see each other and be with each other and explore each other,
Yeah.
which is
Because
such a weird way of saying that, but
all of that stuff comes from being able to be in your heart space during the sex.
yeah,
And how do you get to the heart space? It's those moments. You've got to build that. That's
yeah,
that soft foreplay that has to be there consistently. So if it's died out on you, start with the hello kiss, the goodbye kiss. Start with like setting your clock a little bit earlier and making sure that you have coffee together. Ask start with, and it's like somebody has to do it. So since you're hearing this, it's
you're
you,
the one,
right?
you're the one.
It's you that you has to do it. Start your day with like, hey babe, is there anything that I can do for you today while during my day? Men 99.9% of the time will say, no, there's nothing. They don't want to be that. But just the fact that you ask
Yeah,
means volumes. And then he's going to start asking or, showing up in different ways. It's like, don't make the assumptions, and then allow yourself to get your flirt on and practice that a little bit. Get out of the comfort zone. Do things that you used to do that you no longer do,
yeah. Go grab
right?
some ass or something. I don't know. Do what you gotta do.
Right. Right. It's like, go do something.
I mean,
Men do understand, right? Men
grab your own.
understand sex.
Grab your own ass if you need to, right? Like that's also,
Exactly.
not a bad idea. Just give yourself a little bit of love.
You
And
know,
also,
all of
on
it.
that note, I'm just going to say, without diving way down deep in a masturbation rabbit hole, self pleasure is not bad and wrong either. It is actually a way of getting to know yourself and
And, and
what is
stoking
good
the fire.
and
And it's stoking
and
the fire. Like,
yeah.
I
And
mean,
how
it's like,
can you tell someone else what feels good and works for you if you haven't figured out what feels good and works for you, right?
mhm,
So if you haven't done that because of any kind of reason why you haven't done that, well, that's a big invitation, but take it with what you will. I would suggest try it on, give it a go. It doesn't have to be anything too elaborate, just whatever you're comfortable with, but like building on that, getting to know what feels pleasurable for you. Now, this literally could be like what generally called havening. It's just like a gentle touch, right? It could be just gently touching.
mhm.
Maybe it's more, but exploring yourself with that curiosity of like what feels pleasurable to me so that I can then share that with my partner, right?
Yeah. And
Really bring the
single
fire back.
or coupled, I mean, I would encourage people to, and especially as women, because we are such creators. I mean, we are born creators, right? We manifest life. Something guys participate in, but don't complete. Right? So,
Powerful.
right? So we manifest life, which means that we really do. We have that creative energy about us, and we discredit it so often. And one of the practices that I did when I was single and when I was exploring myself, and that I tell people all the time to do, and it's just like no matter what, single or coupled, start your day with a good fantasy. Like just take 2-3 minutes that after you're done putting yourself together, after you've done all the things and your day is ready to take off, don't let yourself walk out the door. Don't let yourself get on that Zoom call. Don't let yourself access your emails. Don't do anything until you take 2-3 minutes to close your eyes and visualize some sultry story in your head, and let yourself not just see it in your head, but feel it tingle throughout your body, because that's going to completely shift everything for you. You will walk different. You will make eye contact different. Your body positioning, the way you talk, everything is going to be completely different, because once you set that in your mind and in your energy, it's there.
Yeah.
And you can tune into it on your break, while you're driving, at the stoplight, in the carpool lane. It doesn't matter. You can always touch back on that feeling. And if you touch back on that feeling, it changes. And all of a sudden you do become more attractive. You start to really generate this energy. And you want to know where the guys are? Well, they're reading your energy. They just don't understand that they're reading your energy.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
do you have like raging bitch energy going on? Don't talk to me, because you're on like this, but you're gorgeous on the outside and you're totally decked out, but you wonder why guys won't approach. Why won't he approach? Well, probably because of your energy. Start playing with some fantasy. Why is your husband not approaching you? Well, probably because you're still holding a grudge about 2 weeks ago, and that's still coming through in your energy. Drop that guard and let yourself like still start to experience that.
Yeah, and the more I remember hearing this before. Now, when I was in my marriage, and we really got to start wrapping this up. This is
I know.
when I was in my marriage, a lot of people. I was also attending a Christian church at the time, and the number of people that told me I just needed to put out more, or I just needed to pray harder, that really got in my head. But I want to say one tip that I did take from that period of time, that I didn't really use it so much at that time, because the emotional connection and the communication was such a clusterfuck in that relationship, that it was nearly impossible for me to get past that into sexy zone. But I will say, the more you think about sex, the more likely you are to have some sort of pleasurable sexual experience. And now, that seems so simple, and it's like right there in front of you. Just think about it a little bit more, but it's honestly the easiest way. You literally hardly have to do anything. You just have to have some pleasure in your mind. That's all you need to do to start stoking the fire, right? That's like the
The
kindling.
key is having the pleasure in your mind, not thinking about sex, about the
Right.
lack of,
Yeah.
but thinking about the possibilities as though it
Right.
already
Yeah.
is.
Thinking
Right.
about the fantasy that you had of this pleasurable experience of what that might look and feel like, and really truly experiencing it. The more time you spend doing that, the more your energy will reflect that. And then
Mhm.
then it will be on your mind. You'll be more open as a natural sort of result of that. So, that's one amazing thing. Now, we have all kinds of resources and things to share with you. I'm going to say I got my people pleasing masterclass. I have, if you want to go on a journey of discovering a little bit more about who you are, my new, just throw that anywhere. My new journal, which is 90 days of self-discovery. This is going to help you get to know who you are in a way that is going to help you to open up into this deeper relationship with yourself, which will impact everything around you. There are tons of resources out there. I love to help people in this area. And I would like to invite you, Rene, as well, to share any current offers or ways people can work with you, and how people can get in touch with you, so that if they would like to tap into your knowledge and work with you, that they can do that.
Well, I actually have a 5-day challenge called coming in on the 17th of this month. So I'm doing a 5-day dating challenge for singles out there, men and women. It does say that it's for 40 plus, because that's the majority of the people that I work with. But the tips and tricks and all the stuff, it's every age, right? It doesn't matter. I don't care how old you are. So I do have a 5-day challenge coming up. I do have an intensive where I work one-on-one and group setting with people, which is, we go deep in that. It is 12 weeks of really tackling a lot of what we talked about here in that much deeper fashion, right? And also I work with people on like setting up those dating profiles, finding out, how do I meet the man, right? How do I find that person? Like where's he at? Where would I go? And that is that back half of that, but I'm all about setting up the foundation
Yeah.
first. Like, let's get through that. So we learn about the foundation, we do that deep work, and then we move into the other phase. And then as I always say, I'm so Google friendly. It's not even funny. I mean, you put Rene Schooler in there, you're going to find me on Good Men's Project. You're going to find me on Your Tango on Facebook, right? Obviously, I am constantly putting content out, educational resources left and right. I do have a free group for singles. There will be a free group coming out in August for couples. So that is going to both be available there. So best space is probably find me on Facebook and connect with me there, and then take advantage of all of the things that do come up, because I am a daily poster that is constantly give. So
Yeah, hopefully it's all very inspiring. There's no shortage of access to information these days. So that we know that that's not necessarily where people get stuck, right? People get stuck on the implementation of the knowledge. Like, we all know the things, but if it's not working out for you, it's probably because there's some piece of you that hasn't embodied or integrated that knowledge into your experiential knowledge yet. And so that is where your coach, your mentor, your guide can come in to help you to just take that information and actually bring it into your lived experience, right? This beautiful human experience. Such a treat.
And give a nice, loving ass kick.
Yes, and a little bit of love. I like to say I'm like a no BS kind of person, which I don't at all mean. I just mean I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to say it in the most loving way I possibly can, in a way that is going to help you, right? And sometimes, not saying something is not helpful. And sometimes it's very upsetting or very activating or very triggering to be told certain things. And so it's an adventure, but it is one worth going on 1,000% to get to know who you are, because that literally will change everything for you when you get to know who you truly are. It's an absolute game changer, because then you're playing the game, right? You're not just an NPC having the game happen around you. Then you're actually playing the game.
Yes.
Any other final thoughts to wrap us up? One last tip or trick or hack or idea to share with the audience that they can just take with them at the end of this amazing conversation.
Give yourself permission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give yourself permission. Stop looking for permission outside of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. That is an incredible piece of advice. I hope every single one listening to this takes that one. Give yourself permission. All right. With that, I just want to say, I love you all. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we?
Are you ready to break free from self-doubt and embrace a life of empowerment? Introducing the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal, the ultimate companion to my international best-selling book, Unstuck for Women. This beautifully designed journal will take you on a transformative 90-day journey of gratitude, self-discovery, and personal growth. Each day, you'll dive deep into powerful insights, prompts, and exercises that build confidence and self-love. Align your actions with your desired feeling state and watch as your life transforms. This journal is your key to unlocking the extraordinary woman within you. So get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth like never before. You can order your copy of the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal today. Unleash your limitless potential. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Create Your Happy's special bonus season. I trust this real, raw, uncut conversation will fuel your inner fire and provide you with the practical action steps needed to propel you forward. It's time to unlock your path to consciously creating an impact and leaving your legacy. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with other women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. My guest and I would love to hear from you. You'll find the links to connect with us both in the show notes. And if you're ready to take your life, relationship, and business to the next level, I invite you to consider working with me one-on-one. Together, we'll up-level every aspect of your beautiful human journey to create the fulfilling relationships that you desire and deserve. Reach out to learn more about how we can embark on this transformative journey together. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.